I think the movement has never stopped. You know what I mean? As far back we can think, women have always been fundamental to the movement. Even if you want to go back to the Asarian drama when, he's captured by his brother and chopped up into the pieces, and a set went on about gathering his members back together and putting them back together. That was the movement. You know what I'm saying? The movement of putting yourself back together. If you want to go back to Hatshepsut or Hypatia, these were revolutionary women. Queen Nzinga, Assata Shakur, Elaine Brown, Angela Davis. These women who have been fundamentally, a large percentage of the original Black Panther was women. So women have definitely been, they're not just the most fundamental, but the most instrumental part of the movement, and really taking on some of the heavier burdens that men really just didn't have the strength to take on at the time. So there's no shortage of women, even the women who don't get mentioned, are fundamental in probably the most important part of the movement, because really we want that autonomy, we want that freedom, so we can love our woman like we want to love our woman and raise our children like we want to raise our children. Essentially, the movement has always been about that liberating sense between the natural order of life, man, woman, and child. We always sought to manifest that universal principle, that universal truth. So women at times have fought harder for that than men had the courage to at times. And, I truly believe and have a deep, strong, fundamental love for women and all the women who have participated in our liberation and our movement. So, just to name drop some sisters, Queen Afua or Mecca Wise, the sister that passed away, who Dr. Supreme Understanding was married to. These women are phenomenal. And all the sisters who are in that knowledge of self, and all the sisters who, Nation of Islam, Betty Shabazz, and these sisters have done tremendous works in the liberation, the movement, and the lover and nurturing of brothers like us. Because when we come home and hang our hats on the hook, they right there. And somebody please send Brother E a hot meal. He's hungry.
Yeah. Some epic again. Vintage. I say my heaven if you could just see through my hair. You got that? My days are numbered, read it somewhere in numbers. Oh, she told me it's the thing she not ordered to do that unsure. So free your will, free your grace, free your skill, free your face. Before I die, I wanna know how freedom tastes. Before I die, I wanna know how freedom tastes. Free your will, free your grace, free your skill, free your face. I was honest, swear I was wanted on every corner. I was locked away like a monster too many times. This time, can't even bring myself to write my people. This time, can hardly bring myself to write a sequel. Don't ever take life for granted, this life a cheat. Don't know how many days we got on this planet Ice, so be cool. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. The man in the mirror's the shooter, I'm begging to be conducive. An uphill battle, a boat without a paddle, I float. Vampire in Dallas, like sleepers in Seattle. I know all these talents and gifts, and you giving up on me. But God keep bringing me back like bitch, you stuck with me. What's up with me?
Peace and power. This your big brother Psyche. And again, this today's conversation is going to be part 2 of what we did last week. Last week we had 4 brothers quantifying manhood. This week we're going to have 4 brothers attempting to quantify woman. And I'm going to say attempt because I'm not going to be so arrogant to say that we had the abilities and the power to quantify womanhood, but we're going to give our ideal of what it is and what it means to revolutionary thinking brothers. But you have your brother Psyche calling out of Dallas, Texas. We have Brother Robert Ward Williams, the chairman of the San Diego chapter of the Black Panther Party, calling out of California.
All power to people.
We have Brother E, the official minister of misinformation.
Oh, that's fucked up. That's fucked up.
Well, your trademark is to always mess up the intro, so I decided to mess it up for you today.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have Brother E calling out of Florida. He is our official minister of information emeritus of the Panther 48. Brother E.
Hey. Word of the day. Which came first, the front or the back?
Oh. See, I told you. There go Brother E. And we have my brother, Brother Rich. Brother Rich is a student of the 5% teachings and lessons. He's also a master builder of the Hulu Shoe lessons and teachings. And the brother is back with us for the second time. Brother Rich calling out of San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, peace and all power, man. Peace to the brothers, peace to the sisters, peace to the gods, peace to the earth. Everything's square over here, man. Once again, I'm honored and I'm privileged to be on the mic Zoom call with you brothers, man. Y'all brothers are phenomenal, man. Let's get this thing going. Appreciate it.
Already. Last week, our conversation started off last week with what is a man? That's how we started off, and we delved deep into that. And I got some feedback from people hitting us up, and I forgot about them again today. I'm sorry, brothers, but I had a few brothers saying, "Man, you should have me to be on that." Man, y'all did y'all thing. Man, all y'all had some great points. So we decided to come back this week with another question, because you can't have a man, I don't believe, without having a woman. These things complement each other. So the first question we had last week was, what is a man? And the question we're gonna have as this week is, what is a woman? And we're gonna let since Brother Rich is the guest, we're gonna let him start out.
Appreciate you, bro. All women, the joy and the pain in my ass. I'm talking about, boy, I'm talking about women. You know, from the studies and and from my direct experience of dealing with women, I love women. I love women, and I love women. So, what a woman is, you want to get cool with it, the wombed man, or the divine specimen, the earth, the goddess, the queen. I'm talking about all that, the whore, the bitch, just what on every level. The woman is, yeah, I said like that, huh? On every level, man, the woman is, in one word, spectacular. You know what I mean? She's a sight to see, and I definitely couldn't imagine going a day without seeing a woman. You know what I mean? And we know about them days, don't we, Brother Psyche?
True indeed.
Yeah. We know about them days. So what a woman is, by definition, the mother. You know what I mean? The queen, the earth, the moon. I'm talking. I really have very few negative connotations when it comes to a woman. I've been fortunate to have, phenomenal women in my life, from my mother to my fiance, my wife, my chick, whatever I want to call her, but a woman is the true manifestation of the universe. You know what I mean? She is the womb of the universe. They say all things must pass through the womb of wisdom, which is the woman. Everything in the known universe had to come through the feminine aspect of the universe. So a woman is that feminine aspect of the universe, and without it, there would be none of us. You know what I mean? It's phenomenal how both genders, both sexes can come from one sex. You know what I'm saying? A woman has the power and potential to produce a man and a woman. You know what I mean? And this is just spectacular. You know what I mean? I'm always in awe and in infinite curiosity about the woman and the nature of a woman. So to try to put it in perspective or try to put some boundaries around it, it's like trying to measure the universe and say, I got the direct coordinates, I got the direct measurements. The woman is ever expanding. You know what I mean? Like the universe. So, my idea of woman is just, I have a high appraisal and love for women. Most definitely. So a woman to me is an infinite phenomenon.
All right. Now I'm gonna chime in. Don't nobody else want to come in before I come in? I see that look across your face over there, E. Well, I'm gonna chime in. I'm gonna come in and kind of add on to where the brother just left off. He started off with the etymology of woman, the womb of man. The word one man is literally womb and man put together. Some say that means the womb that man comes from. Some say that means the man with the womb, depending on who you're talking to and who you're discussing that idea with. But we talked about last week, we dealt and built on the concept of man and the origin of the word man coming from the Sanskrit manu, which literally means mind, or the origin of humankind. And if that's what man is, then the man with the womb means the exact same thing. You have a lot of women like to call themselves queens these days. And I remember that years ago, over 20 years ago, me and E was having a conversation. And I would tell it E, because E was calling all the sisters queens. You don't remember this? He called every single sister queen. And I was saying to E that I didn't believe that every woman should be called queen just because. And E's response to that, and I understood the response, his response to that was, it's not that all of them have made it to the level of queen yet, but you give them something to aspire to. When you give them that positive affirmation and put that positive title, then maybe when a woman hears that word, especially even talking to her daughter specifically at the time, but when a woman hears that word, she'll aspire to be what a queen is. So when I think of a woman, then a woman is the female monarch. She is the queen to a man's. She's a counterpart to a king, so she is the queen. But to be a queen means that a woman has to be able to wear her crown. She has to be able to properly wear her crown and everything that crown represents. See, it's a thing to have this circular thing on your head with all these jewels in it. It's a completely different thing to understand what that physical crown is supposed to represent. It's supposed to represent what's inside that woman's mind. A woman, as Rich was just saying, is supposed to be infinite wisdom. Just like a man is supposed to be knowledge. A woman is supposed to be a reflection of that knowledge. When a woman shows up, I was having a conversation, I'm gonna pass it because I don't want to long-winded yet. But I thought about a conversation I was having with a brother earlier this week. And this is a beautiful thing if you think about it. He was telling me that he was at the car wash, washing up his ride. He said a beautiful sister pulled up. And he said he approached the sister and he started trying to talk to the sister. And the sister respectfully stopped him and let him know that not only did she have a husband and that she had been with this man for like 13 years, she then started to talk about how great of a man this man was. You know how sometimes when brothers shoot their shot, they'll be like, you have a man? Yeah, I'm married. Well, you happily married? Well, she went to detailing how great this man was to let the brother know how happily married she was. And the brother, he said that, I've never met this man, don't know his name, don't know what he looked like. But based on how she conducted herself and how she talked, I have the utmost respect for that man. He said that he has the utmost respect for that man because of the way this sister conducted herself. She wasn't tempted, and he pulled up in a foreign luxury car. She wasn't tempted to stray from her man by him and his outer trappings. And that made him not only respect her as a woman, but it made him respect her man who he has never met in his life. That's the high quality of a high quality woman to me. That's the quality of a queen to me.
No doubt.
But I'm gonna pass this mic on. Brother Walt, you want to get in there.
I thought you want me to come in for E? I will.
E?
Fine, I'll do it. So, first of all, congratulations, Psyche. You answered the question of the day. In your opening, well, when you said, and I'm not going to quote you because you know my mind be all over the place, but the essence, the crux of what you said was that the queen and the king have to come up at the same time. A man and a woman have to develop and be there at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So that answers the question, which came first, the front or the back? They have to appear at the same time. They're dependent on one another for their existence, for their definition, so one can't exist without the other. Our whole conversation last week was kind of almost moot, just as this one is kind of almost moot and almost irrelevant. Not to say that it's irrelevant, but the idea of attempting to bring one up without simultaneously at the same time bringing the other one up is futile and it's not going to work. Again, that goes back to who we are. So you get 50 cool points for that. Congratulations, brother. You take those back to Wakanda and get you anything you want. 50 cool points to take you forward, Wakanda. But I do remember the conversation that we had because it was in regards to Rashida, because I called her queen. And to develop a little bit more of what you put on the table in regards to it, you're right. One of the reasons I would do it was, and remember, let me put this in context. This is before every dumb motherfucker started calling themselves and every other chick a queen. So this was back before queen was cool to call a sister or your child or whatever it is. This was when it actually had some kind of fucking meaning and wasn't just some meme or some Instagram post, I'm a queen boss bitch and all that bullshit that's going around now. I wouldn't do it today. If Rashida was 5 or 6 years old, I wouldn't call her queen because it's meaningless. It's one of those words like spirituality and revolutionary, everything that has lost so much of its meaning because everybody uses it. It's on fucking TV. It's like any means necessary. has no more meaning because they put it on every fucking TV show and use it for emphasis and shit. It's irrelevant. It's meaningless at this point. So I wouldn't call her that. But at the time, yes, it was an aspiration for my daughter or for any sister that I would come across. It was a reminder of for me to interact with her in a particular way. If there was some conflict or conversation or whatever, to remind myself of who I was dealing with ideally, and to treat her to that. Not to say that if she got out of pocket and did something just out there, you just let it slide. But certainly to approach and engage and interact with a certain level, beginning with a certain level of respect and working from there, rather than what we tend to do now in most of this culture, which is to engage with a woman on this level. And if she's not there, being, just an ass, a dumbass, whatever, then maybe giving her some points and moving her up, doing it the other way and approaching it from a more, I would say, positive or more empowering perspective. But it was also an opportunity to define, because I think I mentioned at the time that, especially with Rashida, I didn't just call her queen. It was a whole call and response that she would, I would ask her, what are you, an African? What kind of African? An African queen. What is an African queen? A servant. Who do you serve? I serve the people. And when you serve the people, who are you serving? God. So this was a back and forth that we would have. So I wasn't only just calling her that, I was defining for her a whole set of values that was plugged into that, so that if I go to her now and say, hey, queen, boom, she automatically knows, okay, this is what's expected. This is where I'm at. It triggers something in her. And we as men have failed in defining that for women. We have failed in defining what queendom or what womanhood from our perspective and holding them accountable. Mr. Farrakhan talks about it all the time. That, matter of fact, Malcolm said it, straighten her up and straighten him out, to define this reality and what the expectations are, because that's what we're supposed to do. That's a part of protection. That's a part of defense, is defending her mind, defending her soul and her spirit in this external world. Remember, hers is the experience, ours is the experience. So all of this physical shit where we rule and are the more powerful of the two sexes physically, we are supposed to define her cosmos. We're supposed to give her this radius to work within, of expectations, of direction, of whatever goes along with that. And we as men have fucking failed on that. So as we develop ourselves and redefine our concept and just the basic word of what words can do and what they're supposed to do, and begin engaging based on that, we begin to define and uplift and shape that woman. And as I said earlier with the word of the day, the two come up together. Because as my mind develops and grows, how I interact with her develops and grows, and she will develop and grow right along with it. Having hindsight 20 years ago, how I interacted with women versus now, and how they behave 20 years ago versus now, it's a grand opportunity to interact, because a lot of the illusion has been exploded for a lot of sisters. And again, as I said, we've defined a lot of her reality when we do videos and music and things, calling her bitch, calling her this, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We feed into that, and then she feeds into it, and now she's blowing up and being a bigger boss bitch than what we thought she was going or could be, or what she was when we started all of this. So there you go. Other than that, I don't know what the fuck a woman is. She need to be able to cook though.
That definitely sounded like a great definition. Actually, that actually sounded like your topic. Actually, if I say so myself, I think that was extremely powerful. And you said something else. You said that we have failed because we are supposed to be that compass. We are supposed to define the realm in which she rules in. Right. As we develop ourselves, that she's supposed to develop simultaneously. And I agree with that. And I can see what we as men have failed in the way that she's supposed to be developed. A brother showed me something that bothered me. And I'm glad I'm not 16 years old trying to date and meet women right now today, because boy, they're gonna be in the world of trouble.
Hell yeah.
He showed me some young sisters. I ain't gonna call the sisters out, but he showed me You know, they the top of the rap game right now. And I've looked at interviews from these sisters. They talk the way they were talking. They talk like these dudes do. And everything that they rap songs was about. I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is horrible. These dudes could be in the worlds of trouble because they basically dating men with vaginas. That's basically what they date nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bad thing. But War, what you had to say on this? What is a woman?
I got a good point that I want to just draw on, based upon us really talking about the damage that we're dealing with. Look at it like this. We say womb and we identify that with a woman. That's also symbolic to a wound, which is also the opposite of a scar. Too often people exchange the word wound and scar. Whereas how many times have men referred to themselves as, you know, Scarface or the image that concept even draws into. And that goes deeper than a lot of folks trying to refer that back to, you know, the whole time it was used in the mafia. But typically when a man thinks of a scar, it's basically from a warrior standpoint, a recognition that I've endured something that has allowed me to survive and I'm still here. So when a man thinks about a scar, it's basically a recognition that I'm going through trials, tribulations, and I'm still here. Whereas a wound in itself is literally a parting or a laceration. Now, we talked about, when you think of a woman, you think about the fact that in order for, when a man and woman procreate, you're dealing with putting a seed in the soil. What do you do in order to put the seed in the soil? You have to lacerate, or you have to part that soil. And parting that soil, what happens at that point is that earth, or that woman from that standpoint, is going to nurture that seed so that it can produce and be harvested. So when anytime there's not a proper connection between the seeding and having proper soil, now you're going to be dealing with a rough situation, which generates a scar from that standpoint of whether it be mental, physical, or spiritual, in regards to that childbearing. This is often when we get to the point to where we talk about the generational problems that we face as men going through manhood, based upon something that may have happened to us in that cultivating stage. So when you think of a woman, and you got to start thinking about the difference between a wound and a scar and the relationship they have with one another. Because too often we don't represent or recognize the nurture and the gestation that must take place from a woman. And based upon how that gestation process goes, that is what's going to create that imbalance. When a man and a woman come together for creating that next generation, or that rebirth from that standpoint, if these things are not in tune, then you're gonna get that next generation facing something that is pre their actual position on this planet, in terms of what was happening during that phase of that internal carry with it, like the seed in that soil. For instance, you going back to that example, and I know Brother E can relate to this. You talk about the difference between how I may plant something in this harvest, and that, just say I plant some greens and they don't come out tasting right. Whereas it all depends on how that soil was nurtured and how that seed was nurtured throughout that soil, and how it was raised and harvested. The same thing happens here. So oftentimes when we look at the end result of the fruit that is bared, based upon the process that it took to make that, we tend to not recognize the role that woman played, or that womb played, in that gastration phase, or in the phase of development prior to our physical birth. So whenever there's damage that is taking place in that level, in that area, it's going to have an effect that occurred what we call pre-birth, pre-physical birth. And I think we don't take that into consideration when we look at the current condition and state of the woman. And so we have to see that it applies to the previous generation, and how that soil was treated, and how that seed itself was allowed to grow and what it had to work with in terms to be able to be harvested.
Yeah.
So let me say this. First of all, War, I'm gonna really need you to work on your pronunciation and shit.
Yeah, gas station.
Bothering me
Okay.
and shit. Fucking around, gas station, motherfucking you. This is where understanding, you know, the more we dig. Somebody said something to me about some words or something, and my response to them was, that's why I always like to go back to the older text, because that's when you start to get into what it actually means versus what we've decided it's gonna mean. You know, bitch used to be something negative. Now it's apparently something positive in the common vernacular. So it changes, our usage of it changes over time, but what it actually is does not. So that's where going back and understanding better, because the same is true for people as well. And if we understand, if we really look and just sit, and I think this is the way we learned things so long ago, so profoundly, we would just shut the fuck up, sit down and watch. And if we just think about the relationship between the sun and the moon, you know, whatever it is we project, whether it's having sex and projecting this seed into this woman, or it's having a conversation, or our actions day to day, we are 24/7 projecting, just like the sun is projecting into the moon. And whatever it is we project into the moon, she's going to nurture it. She's going to bring it forth. That's her job. She's a reflector. She's a reflection. So this scar that War was talking about, over a period of time, we have projected so many scars and pain and damage into the woman's mind over even just, let's just say, since the 60s, because before, and this is why I don't like the whole idea of integration and all of that, and there's really no good argument in my mind for integration, because prior to integration, we had families, we had communities, we had some base of power, and it wasn't until after so-called integration, the 60s, assimilation, miscegenation, whatever you want to call it, war, we're going to debate that again coming up one day. But prior to that, coming and living with these people, you know, it's one thing to have a job in the general area or in the same building, but then when you move to a point after the 60s, we were allowed to go to their churches, marry their daughters, be in their neighborhood. So all of their behaviors and their mindset and their politics and how they interact with people, we began to absorb. How they treat their women, we began to absorb, and we projected that shit into our women. And it's difficult, and we've talked about this, you know, offline amongst ourselves before, that it's difficult to find a sister these days that has not been the victim of some type of sexual violence. It's very difficult. Not at the hands of a woman, but at the hands of so-called men, so-called males, or males, it's so-called men. So this damage that we projected physically, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse that they've gone through, they've nurtured it, brought it to fruition, given birth to it, and now here it is in our face. Here it is, we have to deal with it. And that onus is on us, it's our responsibility for having done that. And so that's why it's so much for us to better define who we are, so that we begin to behave differently and project that into these females, into, you know, our daughters, into our sisters, you know, literal sisters and sisters, you know, down the street, and whoever it is. But the most essential part of it to me is always remembering that we are that sun, and we are projecting whatever it is we're projecting into her cipher. She's going to nurture, and she's going to give that back. What was that? Mary McLeod Bethune said that the true character of a people can be measured by the content. The true content of a people can be measured by the characteristics of a woman. Because the woman, Malcolm liked to talk about, is the first teacher, the first nurturer, the first protector. She is the one that's going to give that to the next generation. But who gives that to her? It's us. And we fucked up on that. And I'm gonna say that over and over again. We fucked up on that. And we have to take that responsibility, whether it takes our lives, it takes our money, it takes our status, it takes whatever it takes. If we're gonna do this thing, we have to be willing to give up all those things and go headlong into it. Live, die, whatever it brings, in order to correct this shit, so that we better ourselves and begin projecting a more conscious and profound seed into the psyche of that woman, and begin to lift her up as we lift up. But she still gotta be able to cook.
she need to be able to cook without a shadow of a doubt.
What's crazy to me is that, well, real quick, what's funny to me is I've noticed over the past couple of years, so many sisters find that offensive. I get it, but it's trippy to me that feeding, physically making sure the most fundamental thing that a person needs physically, food, water, that shelter, that sort of shit, making sure that shit is on point and good is a bad thing, is a negative. That you are superior at this, that you put your foot in it, that you know how to cook, you know how to manipulate these herbs and all of this shit to make a healthy, good tasting meal is offensive. Why the fuck would you want to give that up? Being able to feed an entire fucking nation so that you can have a goddamn job and some red bottom shoes. I mean, fuck that shit. That's some crazy shit to me. I don't get that. Fuck your shoes. Give me a fucking bowl of grits. Fuck.
And that's what we're going to talk about the next subject, what has happened to women and the mentality of women. But I want to touch on the symbolism you use. You know, I love symbolism. Probably the second thing to words that I love is symbolism. Maybe I love words so much because words are nothing but symbols for ideals. Maybe that's why I love words. So I do love symbols. And you talked about cooking. I always tell women, whenever women ask me anything about what can they do to bring a greater level of joy to their man, one of the major things I talk about is cooking. I know a sister that I know this young lady that you know, she works out, she's dedicated to the gym, and she's dedicated to her child. So she really doesn't like the whole aspect of having to find time to cook for a man. And I tell her that's an essential, because you have to understand that to a man's mind, even if he don't consciously know it, even if he's not consciously aware of it, subconsciously, a man's first meal came from a woman. A man used a woman as his first physician, and food was his first medicine. Yes. A woman who prepared that first medicine for a man, you know, and gave it to him. So like you said, it's insane. It's insane how a person could want to give up being that person, being that first position, and providing that meal that could give a man that nutrients and that nutrition to develop his body, to give him cellular repair, to give him energy. You know, that thing is so beautiful between the way men and women relate to each other. Now, to go to the symbolism that you use with the sun and the moon, that was beautiful, because a lot of schools of builders use, not all, because there are different schools, like Brother Richard's school of thought that uses the sun and the earth as symbolic of man and woman. But let's look at the Hebrews. The Hebrew people use the sun and the moon as symbolic of man and woman. And just like you just explained, and the man represented the sun, the woman represented the moon. The gold represented the sun, silver represented the moon, because gold represented knowledge and silver represented wisdom. If you look at some of those old crowns of kings and queens, the king's crown was gold, and the queen's crown was made of silver. I always tell brothers when they want to claim to turn king, like Brother E talked about earlier, that it's basically become a catchphrase now. So it doesn't have any real power, because everybody with a penis want to holler that they're king. And every woman walking around want to holler they're a queen, no matter how ratchet they are. But you know, one of the prerequisites of being a king, if we walk to the throne room right now, and then somebody gave you a message that said, hey, take this message to the king, and then they walk away, and then you recognize that, man, they never told me who the king was. So then you start using context clues. You're gonna start looking for the guy who has a crown on. Maybe he's sitting on a throne. Maybe he has a robe. But the key thing you're gonna look for is a crown, because that crown was symbolic of the king's power. Now that crown is usually round. It's usually gold. It usually has points on it. You know, there are different head dresses, but it usually has points on it, and it usually has jewels in it. Now the symbolism of this crown is gold because it represented the sun. In ancient time, they thought gold was actually sun rays that had hit the ground and solidified in the ground. And again, the gold or the sun represented knowledge. It represented knowledge, and it represents the man. It was round because it was just like the sun. And just like everything in the solar system, rotates around the sun, because in our solar system, the sun has the greatest mass, so it has the greatest gravitational pull. The king is supposed to have the greatest gravitational pull in his family. He's supposed to have that. And the Jews represents the knowledge. If you look in Proverbs, you'll constantly see knowledge, wisdom, and understanding being likened to jewels, rubies, and things of this nature. So it's supposed to represent his ability to have knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And as E said earlier, we don't have to look too far to understand the role that we're supposed to play in a woman's life, because nature teaches us this. So if we look at the relationship between the sun and the moon, a woman is naturally the moon, and she's reflecting whatever light or mislight, I don't know if that's a word, that a man is giving to her. If you're not on point, then whatever nonsense you reflecting on her is gonna leave those scars that Brother Ward was talking about earlier. But if you on point, if you moving and operating like a Malcolm, if you moving and operating like a Farrakhan, if you really on point, and she has something that she can respect, and when she hear you talk, when she watch you move, when she watch how you deal with reality, when she watch how you deal with your issues and problems, then she will reflect that. And a dude would have the ability to know what kind of man you are just by seeing how your woman moves at work, by seeing how she conducts herself when she nowhere around you. The same symbolism that I said for the crown of a king had the same representation for a woman. A woman's crown was usually smaller than the king's. It usually was made of silver, and it they call it a tiara, and it usually had jewels in it. And that crown, that queen's crown, was representative of the moon. The moon doesn't have its own light. The moon is reflecting the light of the sun. So it lets you know that the sun is there even when you can't see it. Even when you can no longer see the sun, you know that the sun is still shining because it's being reflected by the moon, and the moon represents that light in the dark. Also the moon or that silver or that woman represents that secret knowledge, that ability, as Eve was just saying, likening the sun to the man and the moon to the woman. That's that secret knowledge. That's those metaphors, those allegories, and those symbols that the ancient wise teachers hid the deep knowledge in, and only the master builders had the ability to decipher. The woman is supposed to be that, walking and talking. In Greece, and again, I know that Greeks, we can't say that they're the origin of philosophy, but the word philosophy in Greek literally meant the lover of knowledge, or the lover of Sophie. Sophie was the goddess of wisdom. So Sophia, the philosopher, was the lover of wisdom, the lover of the knowledge that he got from the original man, or the first man. If we look at our at your wedding traditions, if you look at that, usually, and I'm finna shut up because I know I can get long-winded on stuff like this, but if we look at the wedding tradition, usually you'll have the man, the groom, standing at the altar, he's waiting. And then the father is bringing his daughter down, and she's covered up, she's in all white, and she has a veil on her face, and you can't even see what she looks like. And he walks her down the aisle, and then he gives her to the man. And then the preacher, he says all this old good sounding stuff, and after it's over with, you may kiss your bride. Then he raises the veil and finally gets a look up on her face, and then he's able to kiss the bride. This is an ancient ritual. And what this ritual represents, when the woman is coming down, the woman is wisdom. And wisdom is veiled, because all men cannot pierce the face of wisdom. They don't have the ability. But once a man has made it to a certain stage in life, then he's allowed to pierce the veil. He's able to raise the veil up so he can see the face of wisdom, who the woman constantly, consistently is a representation of. If you look at, and I said I was gonna shut up, but I'm gonna say this last little part. Mm-hmm. If you look at the college systems in America, when you first go to college, you get an associate's degree. Then the next degree is a bachelor's degree. Then the next degree is a master's degree. And then the next degree is a doctor's degree. You put the words and what they mean. An associate, many of you have said it before. Well, he ain't my friend, but he my associate. He's a guy that I allow to hang around us. You know what I'm saying? He's all right. He's a guy that I allow to hang around. So when you first get that first levels of knowledge, you're an associate. You're not one of us, but you're allowed to hang around the master builders, and maybe you can get a little bit of knowledge in the process. Then you move to the next stage and you become a bachelor. A bachelor, the word literally means an unmarried man. So you're still around and you've been building, but you have not been united with wisdom yet. So you're a bachelor. You considered a bachelor because you're unmarried. And then the next stage is a master. When you become a master, now you have pierced the veil. You've been allowed to unveil wisdom and you have been united with her. That's what these things are symbolic of. These things are ancient rituals that we have brought to modern day time, and they're still being used. And we all know this. You know, if you read any of Tony Browder's book, you'll see that ancient symbolism from when the president is whatever it is it's called when he
inaugurated,
inaugurated, to the Washington Monument in Washington D.C. Many things, to the Mount Rushmore, to many of the things, you'll see those ancient symbols still being used in modern day time. But that's what a woman truly is. A woman is wisdom. That's why through Proverbs you'll constantly see wisdom being called as her and she. She was in the beginning with God, and with God and with her God created all things. That's what Proverbs says, and that's that reflection that we're talking about. You really can't speak about him without speaking about her, because she needed to exist for him to exist, and he needed to exist for her to exist. That's all I need to say. If y'all
there you go, boy. He treading right on the thing. He right on the line. You right on the line. You just got to nudge him, tipping on over. And I just want to point out that if nobody is catching it, the dialectic, the I don't know what to call it. I guess the dialectic that's going on at once. Yes, sisters are fucked up. Period. That's what it is. And I'm generally speaking, you know, I remember back in the day when Shahrazad Ali's book first came out and everything, sisters were, oh my goodness, they were just all kinds of up in their clutching their pearls, all kinds of upset about the shit. But the reality of it is, yes, let me move this so I can see my face. I'm gonna look right at you. Sisters, y'all are fucked up. No doubt. But at the same time, this is not an instance of somebody of cats wanting to sit up and cast stones at womanhood at all. Because at the same time, the other side of it is that we're acknowledging that we've played our part in that we gave this reality to you, that we own our responsibility. Me personally, I did my dirt. I did my shit. I was a hoe. I ain't afraid to admit it. You know, it ain't a good thing. It ain't a bad thing. It's just what it was. I mean, come on. Had a new toy, young kid. I did what players do. That's what the fuck it was. But having grown and having learned, having interacted, being able to see things from a much clearer vantage point, it doesn't take away from the idea that, contrary to popular belief, the moon doesn't shine. Like what Psyche said, rather she reflects the light of her sun. Consequently, if there's no sun in her cipher, she spins in darkness without clarity or revelation. So that is our role, to pull those things out of her that lay dormant. You know what I mean? So like I said, just to reemphasize to once again, yes, this is the fucked up. Brothers played our role. We fucked y'all up. My bad. I didn't mean to do that. I was young and dumb. I know you got other points, bro, so go ahead.
Well, you know, we done talked about some of these points, so some of them I'm not even gonna ask. I want to ask this, and I want to see if anybody got something that they want to say and break this down to some degree. What is toxic femininity?
Oh, shit. All of this shit.
Yeah, well, you know, it's the poison wound, it's the poison receptacle. It's the woman, you know, we're not major shareholders in the media, and a lot of these mechanisms that these people use to influence our thinking. So we're always coming from this Eurocentric perspective about men's and women's role in society. You know, Brother E was saying that, you know, I effed a lot of y'all up. You know what I'm saying? I was a player, but the media was the major proponent to that. You know, because, you know, you can see how, you know, brothers like Snoop Dogg and We Don't Love Them Hoes, and brothers like Too Short was like, shit, these are the freaky tales. But you also see that the media would made sure that type of information made it to us first. You know what I mean? They weren't pushing the major agenda for black love and black relationships and black community. So the toxic femininity is actually the masculinization of the woman. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was trying to let them know I got next, so they need to shut.
Oh yeah, man, take it down.
Oh, so yeah, and I think that the dynamic of where we are socially, black versus white, because you asked what is toxic femininity. Jane Fonda, the feminist movement, all of that bullshit, which is ultimately a recruiting mechanism for gayness, a recruiting mechanism to pull our women away from us. Black women have never suffered systematically at the hands of black men. Give a fuck what they tell you about how things are in black, darkest Africa, where women have to go through this and women have to go through that. We have to understand, like brother was saying, the forward facing, or to kind of build off of what you were saying, a king. It's Europeans who hype up and blow up this idea of a king and being a man and being on the throne. You know, in the Great Pyramid, there's a chamber up toward the top that they call the King's Chamber. There's another chamber down toward the bottom they call the Queen's Chamber. Now, mind you, no bodies have ever been found in any pyramid. Now, why do they call the one up top? Why do white people? Because white folks did it. Archaeologists did that shit. We didn't do it. They named it that shit. Why did they call it that? Because it's bigger. That's it. So this idea of the king being the most important is something they came up with. We understand, we've understood for thousands of years that yes, when one kingdom sits down to have a conversation with another kingdom and work some things out, that's the sphere of manhood. That's what a man does. When you sit across from somebody and you see a physical projection of power, that's what you have to see. You have to see the muscles or a beard or a stone-faced killer that if you try to go wrong on my people, will fuck you up. That's what other men are going to respect, period. However, when that king went home, it's a lot like in 300, you know, when Leonidas went and he consulted with his woman and got her input, got her consoling and her nurturing and whatnot. This was more along the lines of roles of women and out. She wasn't the one giving voice to what it was, but she was the one whispering in his ear. Number one. Number two, our systems are, and this is across the continent of Africa. This is us. This is who we are. I'm telling you, are matrilineal. Meaning, yeah, Psyche might be the king, but Psyche's woman is going to decide who it is that becomes the king after him. So the Aset, which y'all call Isis, one of her many names is the throne of Osar, or the throne of Heru. She is that which determines who will rule. So this whole forward facing is the power is some bullshit that Europeans came along with to devalue our culture, to project themselves forward. And so this whole idea of feminism and pushing back and sticking it to what? No, white women have a problem with their man. Yeah. We have a problem with all of them. And our problems are not their problems. So when white women are bitching about some minuscule bullshit that they can't do or they want to do, it's not ours. And that's a part of the toxic femininity that's been projected into our women. They've divided us by these white women coming in and saying, hey, your man is a problem. This is toxic masculinity. No, it's toxic white boy. It's toxic white masculinity. Your man got issues. You need to go take care of it, because just like our women teach our boys, first and foremost, you're responsible for bringing up George Washington and Hitler and Joe Biden and Trump and all of these. You did that, white woman. But they projected that shit into our communities. Well, and again, back to times prior to the whole integration push and all of that, we ain't had that problem, because we were incubated. We were cut off from their politics, and we didn't have to deal with them so directly. So we had our own value system, but we bought into their value system and have now made white women's issue with white males our issue. Sisters have made it their issue in clumping black males along with white males, as if black men have any power to affect any of the mechanisms in this society that really affect our situation. Shit where women can't take off work because they're pregnant, maternal leave and all of that. We ain't got nothing to do with that. The right to have an abortion or this or that, wherever you stand on, we ain't got nothing to do with that. That's white boys doing that shit. They put some of us in power. Y'all know the game, the routine. You put some faces up there so you can say it's inclusive. But the reality of it is, those are not our laws. We didn't have no abortion issues back in dark Africa. We didn't have no women's lib organization back in dark Africa because we valued the woman from day one. When women started valuing being accepted into the system, being a CEO of Lockheed Martin, it was a woman for a while. Yahoo, the head of Yahoo, was a woman for a while. A lot of women in very powerful positions. I've yet to meet a sister yet that says, yeah, that makes me feel more powerful because she's getting 6 figures, 7 figures in her salary. So these are their issues, and that to me is really what toxic femininity, and that should be a phrase that you hashtag that shit. Somebody that's on Twitter, make that shit real. Hashtag toxic femininity. This shit has been weaponized against us to the point that, like Psyche says, we live in a vaginaocracy or whatever
a gynocracy.
Gynocracy. And it's a white gynocracy because even our women suffer at the hands of the shit. We just don't fucking know it. But we bought into their value system as if it, again, being the head of a CEO of a Fortune 500 company should not, under any circumstances, be more important than being there for your fucking children. And that's one of the questions. Can a woman, this is so fucking stupid, dig it. Can a woman have a successful career and raise a family? Let me tell you, no, you can't. You're gonna give more to one and less to the other. You can't serve two masters. So if you're gonna pursue your career and it's gonna take up 12 or 14 hours a day, I don't give a fuck how you try to rationalize it. Your children are gonna suffer, and that's being borne out. That's showing, that's coming to pass. So no, you can't, you don't get to have both. You just don't. There's just not enough time in the day to raise a career and pursue your own selfish interests and to do what it is that you're supposed to be doing, which is to nurture the next generation and make sure our people don't get more fucked up. Sorry, that's just the fact. That's mathematics. You want mathematics? That's the mathematics of it. 1 + 1 don't equal 28 hours in a day. It just fucking don't. Now, cook me something, goddammit.
You sound like Kevin Samuels right now.
I ain't got no. I told you I don't have no problem with most of what he said. I don't have no problem with it.
Yeah, but you on point. I'm just outside. You on point. You ain't telling no lie. Actually, that's what I was gonna say. Toxic femininity is, so ain't no point in saying it again. What's up, Rich? You got something on your mind?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking about toxic femininity is the sloganeering of it. The independent woman. I don't need no nigga. I don't need no man. I can do this on my own. That's toxic. You know what I mean? Because the way we interpret reality is different from the way these people who are pushing this agenda on us. We operate off interdependence. And I tell my shorty all the time, like I tell anybody else all the time, you need somebody. You didn't do it on your own. You didn't teach yourself everything that you learned. You didn't go pull you didn't go pull the goddamn oil up out the earth and put it in the gas pump. Somebody else did it for you. You didn't sign your own check. We are interdependent. You know what I mean? Once you start out this old Sasha Fierce ass shit, independent ladies, I can do it on my own. I don't need no man. I got my toys. That's toxic. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? You stick to them toys. You stick to you got it all by yourself. You don't need no help. Man, you suffering. And you quick to harp on some, I don't have anybody. You don't want anybody. You know what I'm saying? That's toxic. You know what I mean? So all the sloganeering and all the frustration that comes with that hyper individualism, that's why we suffer so much, because we thinking, I'm one deep, YOLO, you only live once. Weird ass, these weird catchphrases that these cowards use to push this agenda of, I got it all by myself. It don't work like that. So that's toxic femininity. You know what I mean? That's toxic. I don't need no man. I don't need this. I can get it on my own. You're not being realistic. You ain't ever done anything on your own. You ain't even put the toilet paper on the toilet paper roll to wipe your own ass with. You didn't manufacture that. You know what I'm saying? We need somebody. And once we come to grips with that, then a lot of that poison, a lot of that toxicity, it'll dissolve.
Okay, now he said something earlier when he talked about the sun and the moon and the reflection of the light, and that was a beautiful symbolic breakdown. Now I got another question I want to put out there. And Rich just talked about need.
Wait.
I forgot what was.
I got a point. I got two things I want to bring up.
Get in there then. Yeah.
it's aspects of the toxic part that I think we hadn't mentioned or addressed.
Okay.
First off, y'all said it, but I want to go into it a little bit further. Finding it offensive to being a nurturer, as if processing life is being condemned to a lower level. That is part of the weaponization that goes into what he was saying in regards to the woman. And as a result of that, the spinoff from that gets into this position of where the woman feels like she can be at the same thing as a man can be, which goes also. Another aspect to that is also the promotion of the overextension of nurturing to the point of enabling codependency by not having a child or a young adult experience growth through real life exposures. That's another part that we don't tend to address, because too often what you find, going back to those scars we talked about, as a result of certain types of scars, a woman will hold on to her child and prevent that child from growing and experiencing the type of things that the child needs to do, so that that child can now leave the nest, leave the womb, and actually become an adult. Part of what we dealt with on our last class, when we last session, when we talked about the difference between a male and a man, goes into this aspects of toxic femininity as a result of a nurturer not letting go and over nurturing something to a certain degree. Let's keep this in mind. When you talk about the period of time when a woman carries the child, that at that 9-month area, that 9-month period, that child is basically saying, I have to get out of here.
I got
I'm now to where I need to leave and experience the physical for myself. That same 9-month period happens again in life multiple times. So
Absolutely.
Again, that child needs to be able to experience things away from the womb. So when that womb holds that baby longer than 9 months, or when that womb holds that child longer than necessary for it to be able to make the transition to teenage and adulthood, then you are creating a codependency that should not be there. And you are creating an additional scar that's going to prevent that child from ever being able to be an adult or a man or a woman to the point to where it can do the same thing and repeat the same process. So part of that toxic part that we have to identify with is that sometimes they hold on to that to their offspring too long, simply because of the pain that they may be carrying as a result of a failed relationship with what helped them produce that child. So they want to hold on to this love to the point to where it becomes toxic, and they won't let go, and they create a codependency between them and that child. And that is going to make that child become an adult child and not be able to do the right thing and operate the correct way. So I do want to address that and make sure we got that out there.
Sure indeed. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you didn't forget that. That was very extremely important, because we see a lot of that, especially in the Black community. We see a lot of that. And you know, in ancient times, there are many ancient societies that when a boy got to a certain age, he'd be taken from his mother. He'd be pulled away from his mother and taken with the warriors out into the wilderness, where he could start developing his actual manhood. He had to be removed from his mother, though, for that to happen. She did her part in the first parts of his life for his nurturing and his feeding and things of that nature. But in order for him to move to the next stage, he had to be removed from her, because like you just said, she will cripple him. She will, what's the word I'm looking, what is the word for it? Enable him. She will. And I see a lot of that in today's society. And much of that we know comes from slavery. It's an offshoot from slavery, when the woman got into the habit of trying to protect her child and keep him from being killed. Because if he showed any manliness, it'll probably get him hung from a tree. It'll probably get him murdered. But one of the things the sisters, the women have to understand, and it ain't just Black women, because I know many women, Latin women, different women that constantly hit me up on my channel asking for different advice on how to deal with their male children that are doing the same exact thing, that are holding on to these kids too tight and won't allow these boys to actually get out there and become men. Give him the tools that he needs, but become men. And part of the problem is, and I've talked about this before, is this baby mama, baby daddy bullshit y'all got going on. That bullshit destroys and fractures families because, and there ain't nothing we can do about it. It's here now. But this is one of the things that we have to think about. That stuff destroys and fractures families because this is the situation you have. Here you have a father not in the household. So you have a mother trying to be a mother and a father. She can never be that. She can never be that. Because one of the things we got to understand and we have to respect is that balance that we talked about earlier, what E was talking about when he asked the question, which one came first, the front or the back? They're both dependent on each other to actually exist. See, the first birth for the child happens from the mother, but the second birth for the child happens from the father. So
yeah.
It has to be there to give that intellectual birth to the child. He has to be there for that. That's his duty, that's his job, and that's what he was constructed for. And nobody else can do it. Just like the father, it's insane for a woman to think she can do it. It would be just as insane if he was running around thinking he could get a first birth to the child. If he was running around the planet claiming he could give that first birth to the child, he would be out of his damn mind.
Absolutely.
Transgender.
It cannot happen. It cannot take place. And so he threw me off when he said transgender.
My bad.
So this is what we have to understand. But back to what I was saying, the baby mama, baby father thing. So when you don't have a father and have the actual father that gave birth to the child, what a lot of these women do is they put their child, especially their male child, he becomes the man. He becomes her man. And she leans on him for every single thing. I ain't talking about sexually, but she leans on him for every single thing that a woman should turn to her man for. She starts turning to her child for those things. And when she actually meets a man, then that man is not even allowed to play the role of a real man in the household and teach and educate the child and get that second birth the way he's supposed to, because she's so affectionate to her boy child. She's so affectionate to him and she's so protective of him that she actually destroys the possibility of her even having a surrogate family and him having a surrogate father, because of the way that she's become so overprotective of him. What she needs to do is, as I said this before, is what Sarah Connor did in the Terminator movies, when she came to the realization that her son was going to be the savior of the world and his father was dead. She went and found a man that was qualified to teach him the skills necessary to become John Connor. And that's the way women have to start looking at it. Women have to start looking at the men that they're dating and dealing with, if they're single women and they have children. And this women understand this. Understand this. You got to understand this. If you want a man to be in your life and you want him to take you seriously and you want him to become a part of your family and you want him to step in and play that role and raise another man's child, you got to understand that a man, when he does that, he's gambling. Because the fact is, it's not his. It's not his child. Oh, that child is the most beautiful thing in the world, according to you. But to him, it's another liability. So if you want him to step up and do that, then you cannot get in the way of that bonding process. You gotta let him come into the household and actually be the man. You have to let that happen. Because when he comes in and you in the way and the child is in the way, you ain't my daddy, no way, and you not supporting what that man is trying to put down in the household, then it's too easy for that man to say, you know what, F this, let me walk the hell away from this. So you have to understand that we done created this baby mama, baby daddy bullshit. We have to create some levels of concessions for a real man to step into that household and actually play the role that he needs to play in that child's life, even if he didn't physically father that child. Go ahead, War. I see you got something on your mind.
I'm gonna actually give the people, the audience, a definition of a word to go with the definition you just called, because I think this curse words has been taken too much out of context. That child that you're talking about that has now replaced that man is actually called a motherfucker. A motherfucker is a child that has been reared and nurtured way past the time to where it should have been set free. And at that point, what it's going to do now is turn inward toward that household instead of going out and dealing with reproducing and creating a new family. And it's not just, don't look at it as just a physical thing, although during slavery, that's exactly what it was, because they would force the children to have sex with their mother. So make sure y'all understand that the word in itself, as it applies to physical bondage, Motherfucker was something that they created and made happen within the Black family. But as we talk about now, the current condition now, from a psychological, mental, and spiritual aspect, when you hold on to that child past that age to where that child needs to be going through manhood training and needs to be working with that with a man at that time, then what happens to that child is it's going to turn on you, and it's going to start operating and having a relationship with you that is going to be way out of balance, to the point to where when a man does try to step in that house, he's going to be like, for one, you ain't my father. Number two, I'm going to try to chase you away and get you out of here because I don't want you to take place of the bond I got with my mother. So that's when you're dealing with an ill-balanced relationship to where the child and mother bond thinks that he can get in the way when another man enters that household. Why? Because the child is at this age now to where it's bucking and it feels like it has to exert that same energy that is trying to be presented in that household. So keep that in mind. That is what a motherfucker is. So stop making children a motherfucker.
Sound like some baby boy shit to me.
For real.
And that was the whole symbolism behind the movie. That whole concept.
Then Dr. Franz Chris as well, Chris Wilson expound on that in the ISIS papers.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Fucker and the motherfucker. Yeah.
That's a reference, right?
Yep. True indeed.
Oh, and just let me go on record saying this, that pussy ain't shit. If y'all can get me in contact with what's her name, Nicki Minaj, or that other girl that talks real fucked up. I don't remember her name. But
Megan Thee Stallion,
Cardi B.
Yeah, all of them. Fuck it, I don't care. Somebody need to let them know that they coochie ain't shit. Sex is easy. Sex ain't a commodity. It's not something you can, you fuck your way to the top, but what the fuck top are you? What do you want top of? A completely bankrupt value system in society, rewarding you for essentially completely or helping to completely skew and fuck up the whole entire concept of what womanhood is. And I think that's another part of this whole toxic femininity. Women believe that when they come to that's another phrase. What do you bring to the table? If all you bring to the table is your coochie, I don't want nothing to do with you. If that's the best thing you got, I'd rather have a hot meal. I can always jack off, but I can get a much better meal from a sister who knows what she's doing. I can cook, but I can't cook like, sister that knows how to cook can cook. So I would much rather have that love, that energy, and the information that's put into that in a trade-off for some shit like that. So yeah, your pussy ain't shit. And that whole idea, the reason I yelled out a minute ago about transgenders, that's exactly what they're doing, is trying to fuck up the entire concept of men and women by saying that, they don't even, in a lot of legislation that's going on in this country now in regards to womanhood and all of that shit, they're trying to, instead of saying motherhood or a woman, they're saying a person capable of having a child. Because a woman who's gone through the whole transgender shit and is now a quote unquote man is still able to get pregnant. So they're trying to warp this shit. Yeah, because she keeps the internal shit. All they do is cut off the external. So
I didn't know.
Still carry a child, but now because legally she's a male, they're saying a male can have a baby. And it's and that's one of the reasons I sit back and I'm looking at this idea of entropy, how things are just fucked up. Society's completely come apart to the degree even white folk can't agree on what males and females are, and they ain't been fucked up like we done got fucked up. So they just coming to the table fucked up, So yeah, that whole idea of men giving birth, that's what they're trying to do, is to skew that in a social sense and make it so that we further don't understand, because these are the basic tools of building a nation, a community, a family, and self. It's just these concepts. If I'm a little boy, I need to understand the concepts, and that's one of the reasons we have rites of passage shit in our culture, is so that I understand the difference between a male, a boy, and a man, a female, a girl, and a woman. But we don't have those anymore, so everybody's free to make up their own definitions and go get a sex change or supposed sex change, because it's not even a sex change, and then have a kid, or go to a track meet and beat everybody, or a wrestling match and beat up all the chicks because you decided you want to be a female, some dumb shit. But yeah, that's it. Pussy ain't shit.
You know, I gotta reference my man Jay in this one. The power of the PUSSY. Yeah, yep. Listen to that track. It's exactly. Yeah, it'll make things.
Pussy power only works when you're dealing with an undeveloped man.
True indeed.
That standpoint, you're still talking about a motherfucker, because they are attracted to that, staying in that womb, staying in that womb. So then that womb can be weaponized. And that's why the whole concept of even dealing with sex as being the oldest profession can survive.
No doubt.
Right. I'll tell you a personal experience real quick. My youngest son is not actually mine biologically, but the woman that I married at that point in time, he was already there. She brought him from another relationship. And so I came to the realization all of a sudden that I was allowed to be his father for all of these years when I put him on a city bus. Mind you, he's like 15, 16 years old. And for us, that ain't shit, being 15 on a city bus. I was on a city bus by myself at 9, 10 years old. So I put him on a city bus, rolled the city bus down to a corner store, I think I made up something we needed, milk or some shit. Get the milk, come back, so that he would have that experience of dealing with the world on his own, without somebody in between him and the world. That's what men do. We have to deal with the world on our own. His mother got so upset that she threatened to never allow him to be around me again if I ever put him on a city bus again. That's toxic femininity. You don't fucking do shit like that. You don't wheel and deal your relationship with I was the only father he's known since he was like 4. When his biological kicked him and his mama to the curb, supposedly. I don't know if that's a real story, but whatever. So for her to step in and essentially say, you're not the father. You're the father because I'm allowing you to be the father. When I say it's done, it's done. Oh, well, fuck you then. And that's the mindset that chicks, either you gonna do it or you're not gonna do it. Quit fucking around. And that's a part of that toxic femininity that gets tossed at us and hurled on us. And again, ain't trying to attack, but this is the reality of it. We've taken our responsibility, at least on this show, at least in the words. Sisters also have to be willing to take their responsibility for that shit as well and stop doing that shit. When you come across a good man or somebody that you think is a good man or whatever. So yeah, pussy still ain't shit. But go ahead.
And true indeed. That's what I was talking about when I talked about how we allowed this baby mama, baby daddy thing to mess up the concept of family. But we could actually rebuild it if you actually allow a man to come in and actually play his role. But he cannot play his role, and he can never feel comfortable in his role if he knows that his relationship is going to be wheeled and dealed if you don't like what he's doing. He comes in as a man, and his job is to take a boy, and as he started the conversation, he said, my youngest son, because in his heart, he feels that this child is his. But then he had to remember, the son that she brought into the relationship with her, because he was reminded that this is really not my son, because I can veto whatever you think you can do when it comes to him, because at the end of the day, you are not his father. And no man wants to hear that. No man wants to hear that. It's a woman, and he loves a woman, and he's willing to build a family with this woman. You have to allow that man to be a man. And one of the things that women don't understand is that you actually devalue yourself when you do this. You devalue yourself, because no conscious man in his right down mind wants to be in a situation like that. So he walks away. It's better to get with a woman who only has his children or a woman who has no children at all. So you have to understand what you're doing when you do things like that. And a man, I don't know how long ago that happened to E, but he still remembers it. And E ain't just the only man. This is a constant that men have actually went through when trying to create relationships with these children. And even though he didn't father that child, what y'all got to understand is that we men are people. So we actually fall in love with these children. We actually start to care about the development of these children. And when these are taken away from us, you know, that leaves a scar itself. So the women have to really truly understand this. Y'all got to understand this. Now I got another question because we figure ready to wrap up in a minute. Unless, boy, you got that look on your face. You want to build on that?
I just wanted to say, to me, it's not about falling in love at all. I think that's the wrong terminology. I think what it is and men that are developed and recognize their role as a man knows that that's a level of accountability. That's what I am supposed to do. I am supposed to bring other men through manhood.
Indeed.
So if I'm going to be in this household with this child that's at the age and ready and me doing my part, I am supposed to take them through manhood. And if you're going to stop me from taking them through manhood, then you are going right back to that term I said. You're going to make him a motherfucker. And from that standpoint, you're going to create codependency that's going to stay with him and make him a man-child. Period.
Sure indeed. And like
I gotta say both of y'all right, because there is a level, like Psyche said, we are human. We do have emotions, and there is, I don't know if it's falling in love or whatever, but there's definitely a love and a desire to be around that kid, because now you like that kid. You have a bond with that kid. And that I think that's what he was referring to, is just on a human level. I love this little boy. Oh, you're gonna say, well, fuck you then. And that not only fucks up that relationship, but like in my instance, I had an actual physical biological child with this woman, so it ended up fucking up part of that relationship as well. So all of it just gets fucked up because of this whole power trip and play that chicks like to play with their kids. Toxic femininity is using children as a fucking weapon, and that's some bullshit. And sisters, I get that you be angry. I get that you want to, you hurt, you want to lash out in whatever way you can. But slash my fucking tires. Don't fuck with the relationship with the kids, because that's some shit that'll drive a dude insane and have him doing some really fucked up shit. You slash the tires, you're gonna get some blowback or whatever, but you start fucking with a man's emotions toward what he's now taking on as his child or his actual physical child from jump, then you get into a whole nother level of just vengeance and having a vendetta and calling it, kill this bitch and all that kind of shit that comes along with it.
Yeah,
that's the scar thing.
And he's telling the truth, because I personally went through this. I never talk about it, but when I was on my 17-year vacation, before I left, I had 2 children with a woman. But when I met this woman, she already had 2 children, and I ain't finna get into no law detail on this, but the children were very young when I met them, so I grew to them. I actually grew to them. The son, her oldest son, he was 4 when I met her. He was 4. And her daughter was basically newborn, essentially. And I literally, wrung her out of diapers, taught her how to use a spoon, all of that, And with the son, I built with him. I educated him. I read Malcolm to him. I gave him the schooling that I myself was getting while we were doing our revolutionary development. And he was around all of it. What I see E's hand.
Oh, go ahead.
And he was around all of it. So I grew to these children. While I was gone, I visualized and fantasized on coming home, recreating my relationship with my 2 sons. Not only that, but actually having a close friendship with their brother and sister, because I essentially raised them. This is what I visualized in my head. I come home to a whole group of people who I basically raised hate me. This woman had taught these children to hate me, had lied to these children. These children literally hate me to the point that my children are grown now. They 25 and 23. The 23-year-old don't even want to talk to me or see me. And the 25-year-old is everything that I feared that my children would be with my absence. I feared, it was 2 things that I was afraid of while I was gone. I feared, and I used to pray that this didn't happen, that my children get murdered while I was gone, or I come home to some niggas. I like niggas. I'm like the Klan when it comes to niggas. I do not like niggas. Yeah, I can't stand a nigga. You know, I hate niggas. I hate niggas more than the Nazis. Yeah, it's the truth. And God, I can't have a relationship with my children. And you know, to me, like he just said, okay, we're adults. Our relationship didn't work. That's cool. You do not have to destroy the relationship between a man and his children. That don't make sense. That's toxic femininity. And I could have did that. I didn't do it. I could have did it because this woman left her children. This woman burnt off on her children. Didn't come around her children for 4 years because she went to be with another man that she was having an affair with. This woman burnt off. And I never dogged that woman out to her kids. Never did it. When her children asked me where their mama was at, I told them that she needed some time to get herself together and that her mother loves them and she will be back. I set myself up to have my own throat cut. And I do it all the time because I never, ever planted a negative seed about them because I don't believe that that's what you're supposed to do. I just don't believe in it. When she had the opportunity over that 17 years to plant those seeds about me, she took it and ran with it. And now, I'm not even gonna claim I have children anymore. I don't have any children. I'm not claiming because I mean the relationship I don't think can even be repaired. But that is toxic femininity, and it's really unnecessary. It's uncalled for.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to spin off of what you were saying because I was there in a lot of those early years, and just to give an idea of how something that seems to be just an issue between, Psyche and this woman actually affects the community. My children, my oldest two, spent a lot of time with Psyche's children because me and Psyche were building a lot during those years. And so we had built up this whole naughty, this whole idea that our families were going to form around this and develop these values and these ideas and put these things in our children's heads so that we could turn the tide and push back. And when this happened, even in Psyche's absence, there should have been an effort to at least allow those children to maintain a relationship so that they could go forward and build on, because I was still there. War was still there. So we could have stepped in and provided some semblance of fatherhood to all of these children and helped them continue to maintain and develop their relationship. But because it was cut off, because the mother took them and went a whole left, I didn't even make it, because I already knew, because I tried to play the middleman at some point a little bit here and there to try to help heal the situation. So I knew I was going to be an asshole right along with Psyche. I'm sure if my name ever came up, not that it did, I don't know, don't care, but that I would be trashed right along side Psyche because of my affiliation, my relationship with Psyche. So it affected not just this man and a woman, not just this man, woman, and their children, but also my children, because to this day, or not to this day, the last time me and Rashida, really, my oldest daughter, she would, for a while, she would follow some of them on Facebook, and she would give me updates, T is doing such and such, K is doing, blah, 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 just because we know them. But they weren't able to have their relationship and have it grow. So it affected the community in that way, just because of Psyche's decision to do whatever. They got him on a vacation, but then ultimately the mother saying, fuck that shit, I'm gonna get back at him, get back at the world and exercise my, this toxic femininity and basically go left and completely sever all of these relationships over here. So that's 4 women, 4, 5, 6, that's 6 little black folk. They could have grown up with some type of rapport. They could have at the very least been on the show reminiscing, hey, y'all remember when, Psyche and Baba went to such and such and Brother War was da whoop de whoop, because they were always around. They always knew each other. So again, it affects the entire fucking community, not just those 1 or 2 people that are involved. And that's something that's got to be embraced and understood. This shit is bigger than your petty bullshit, which is some of it's petty, but that's another thing that Shahrazad Ali talks about, is how sisters so many times will come home, will come around and bring so much petty bullshit to the table. He said, she said, gossipy shit at work. Brother don't want to hear that shit. Brother, I don't want to hear that. Why are you bringing that into our relationship and making that part of our dynamic. It's one thing to have a conversation about what's happening in life and whatnot. It's another thing to bring home petty, what we call it, women fight. You know, when women start to going at it, as long as it's just the females going at it, brother with this thinking right will just sit back and let that shit play itself out. Because if you get involved in that shit, you're gonna get fucked up, you're gonna lose, your chick gonna be pissed at you, her girlfriend's gonna be pissed at you, and the next day they gonna be homies again, and you still gonna be an asshole because of whatever you said. She gonna be mad at you, they gonna think you a dick. So we just stay out of that shit because it's so much pettiness that goes on behind it, you know? So that's just some more of that shit that doesn't get quantified with a nice little hashtag, but it fucking is.
Yeah. And you know, I tried to rebuild my relationship with my oldest son in hopes that development could actually unite me with my youngest, but it just didn't work. What she had done to him at this point is irreparable. What she have done to him. Maybe something might happen in the future, I don't know. But who he has developed into is completely counter to who I developed into, and we can't meet eye to eye. We can't even have a real good conversation. But I sat with him and I talked with him, and I attempted to build with him, and I told him that even though, and I own my mistakes for putting myself in prison. I own that. You know, I made a decision. I allowed my ego to take control and overstep my responsibility. I did that. But as I told him that you didn't have, it's a lot of stuff and a lot of teachings that y'all went without that you didn't have to go without. I have a network. I have conscious brothers around me who I was a part of a community with. And these brothers, not just out of love for me, even though that's there, these brothers, as Ward just said, are the type of men who understand it's their responsibility to usher boys into manhood. And they would have been there for you. They would have came and got you and took you to places that would have helped you grow. They would have taught you lessons that would have helped your understanding develop. They would have stepped in and took those roles and played that part. That's what they do. They have taken on the responsibility and a oath to do this for the community. So definitely they would have did that for y'all. Your mother just didn't allow that to happen. But I have a network that would have done those things. No, there is no way you can get me to believe that if one of my sons would have called Brother E or called Brother War and said, I need $10 to go on this field trip, and if they had it, that they wouldn't have came with that. There's no way you could have get me to believe that. And you know, there's a lot of resources that they was cut off from because of that pettiness that E just talked about. Hate me out forever, but don't cut your children off from those resources, from those brothers and those sisters. Hell, even Isaiah, even third was trying to make contact with him and trying to play the middleman, and even he was cut off, and it hurt his feelings. You know what I'm saying? Even him and his wife were trying to play their part. But I mean, you know, but I want to end. I'm gonna let E come in because E got something to say. But I'm gonna let our last subject, as we get ready to close, because I know we probably gonna get long-winded on it. It's gonna be because I don't want women to think that we're bashing women and we're bashing women. No, we understand and respect the power of women. So one of the things that I want to put on the table is how instrumental have women been in the black power, black empowerment, black freedom. I don't want to use black empowerment movement, black freedom movement, black liberation struggle. How instrumental have women been in that? E, you had something to say on the last subject before we go to this?
Yeah, I think that's another thing with the whole value system being fucked up like it is, and us not knowing one another. There's this idea that men don't have these soft feelings. You know, I love my kid. You know, I used to read my baby girl, read her story at bedtime, you know, and then sing her to sleep. Men have these connections with their children, but like Shahrazad Ali noted, that relationship is predicated on the relationship with the mother. Because if she fucks it up and dogs us out or cuts them off or whatnot, the male's fight or flight response is to just cut it off. Press it down, keep it moving. I got to keep going. I can't feed into that because it's gonna kill. We already know it's gonna kill me. But I think there's this idea that we don't have those feelings. We don't have those emotions. that we don't feel for our kids, that we don't feel for our woman, that we're just supposed to be hard or we are hard or whatever it is. And I know in large part that comes because we have bought into this Eurocentric mindset way of thinking, as opposed to actually having conversations and understanding who we are through a study of our history and what it is we did before we got fucked up. Again, know something about before integration, how the fuck we did shit before integration. Because so-called integration in the 60s and whatnot, because like I said, since then we picked up and bought into and sucked up all of their mental bullshit, and emotional. But yeah, there's this idea that we don't feel, and that's just not fucking true. We might not cry like you want us to cry, or look sad or whatever it is, the way you want us to. But you have to accept our expression of our emotions as ours. We're not going to do it the way you do it because we're not women. We're going to do it the way we do it. And part of the way we do it is providing and protecting and being, cultivating the minds of our children in the way that we're supposed to cultivate them. And I think that is devalued, that there's a greater price on certain, on a multitude of material things, as opposed to having a good fucking man. And I know your boy, Kevin Sanders, talked about it all the time. I've had to really, especially listening to him, come to realize I'm a high value motherfucker. I ain't got no $100,000 a year job, but I'm high fucking value. I didn't know that. I didn't realize I'm high value, you know what I mean? Because anytime a woman wants to talk about a good man, a real man, it's these ideas and these values and whatnot that you don't get from being out in the system in the world and picking up all their bullshit. You get their values, which is not good manhood, which is dropping babies everywhere, which is calling you a bitch, which is seeing you as an object. That's what they do. That's what we got from them. But to talk about being a good man, sisters have to make that a high value something. And by doing that, start teaching us more about what it is to be a man. Because the reality of it is, on the sister side of it, sisters have grown to value somebody that can pay the bills versus somebody who can fucking, build a bookshelf or some shit, or take care of the house, and who will treat them with sincerity and honesty and be a part of their reality. They've traded that off so that they can get the Gucci bags, or so they can travel around the world. And that's funny. All these sisters I've seen on these different profiles and shit talk about traveling. You told me that's a thing now. The Instagram and all of that shit. Everybody wants to travel. Everybody wants to travel and go to the place, but don't nobody want to sit down, shut the fuck up and learn about the place. I'm kind of halfway glad that I never really had the financial opportunity to travel to like Egypt or to any place in Africa or around the world, because when people go, they don't learn shit. I talked to this dude in years ago. He was a Marine, and we were working at the same spot. And somehow me and this other dude were talking about Kemetic spiritual science. And he chimed in and said the Egyptians were polytheistic. Oh shit, what the fuck he say that for? So we started going back and forth, and his whole premise was, I was stationed in Egypt for 4 or 5 years. I know. And I'm thinking to myself, I think I actually said it, that same idea, because you live someplace, you know something about it, would mean that all of us are scholars about the indigenous lifestyle, the people of the lifestyle of the indigenous people, the so-called Indians here. We know their spiritual system. We know how they ran things. We know what they grew. We know how they acted, because we've lived here our whole lives, 30 years. By that idea, we should be fucking scholars about ancient life here. Experts. So I'm glad that I didn't go to these places, because people travel to Italy, don't know shit about Mussolini, let alone the black folks that established the shit. Go to Greece, don't know shit about the black folks that established Greece, don't know shit about the places we're going. We just go and see it so that we can say we saw it and we were there, and take some selfies and all of that bullshit on the surface level. And again, that's the value system of the oppressor. That's not us. We look to a deeper context for what we value. And part of those values are the values that we get outside of the system, the values that we had prior to the 60s, the values that sisters like Assata Shakur built on, sisters like Fannie Lou Hamer, you know, Harriet Tubman, even Rosa Parks. Sisters have been absolutely essential to what it is we're doing, again, because they're first and best teachers. They had men like Malcolm, men like Hugh and them, men like, you know, whomever, Dr. King and Medgar Evers and these other cats that at the same time were projecting something positive and something building into them, and they reflected that and supported that. And so we were able to have a cohesive community to whatever degree, and to push back and to maintain our own sanity that we don't have anymore. So yeah, sisters have been absolutely essential to the movement. However, because we both lost our grip on what it is our role is, we no longer have that ability, male or female. But yeah, sisters have been absolutely, you know, my mama white, you know, full disclosure, you know, everybody, I'm half white, mama white, and daddy black. So I can't really speak to, you know, I had aunties on my pop's side, and it's funny because on my pop's side, I was never really close to that side of the family. I don't know what that's about, but in a broader sense, in a broader picture, yes, Black women, African women have always played a role in maintaining. When brothers weren't available to play that kingship role, there were always sisters to step up. Queen Nzinga, because I think it was her brother died. She stepped into the role of leading the resistance to the European onslaught. You know, you have the Kandakis on the West Coast. You know, throughout history, sisters have stepped up. Hatshepsut have stepped up and filled the roles of leadership. But throughout, even when they weren't on the forward facing, they were still in the background whispering in the ear, you know, and it's fucked up as that sister that has no name, whose name we're not going to mention, was the one thing that she did that I still like is when we were going to go down to Jasper, you know, for the second time. And she told you, whatever her reasoning was, I don't know. Might be at the house. But just that idea of, as opposed to another sister who broke down crying because we were going to go down there, this sister, at least in those words, was essentially, you better get up off your ass and go handle that business. And that's the type of shit that we have to have. That, you know, stay on the path. I got you, baby. Come on, do this. And we don't have that. So yeah, y'all come on back.
Oh yeah,
and bring some grit, some hunger.
Yeah, I think the movement has never stopped. You know what I mean? As far back we can think, women have always been fundamental to the movement. Even if you want to go back to the Asarian drama when, you know, he's captured by his brother and chopped him into the pieces, and a set went on about gathering his members back together and putting them back together. That was the movement. You know what I'm saying? The movement of putting yourself back together. If you want to go back to Hatshepsut or Hypatia, you know, these were revolutionary women. Queen Nzinga, Assata Shakur, Elaine Brown, Angela Davis. These women who have been fundamentally, you know, a large percentage of the original Black Panther was women. So women have definitely been, you know, they're not just the most fundamental, but the most instrumental part of the movement, and really taking on some of the heavier burdens that men really just didn't have the strength to take on at the time. So there's no shortage of women, even the women who don't get mentioned, are, you know, fundamental in probably the most important part of the movement, because really we want that autonomy, we want that freedom, so we can love our woman like we want to love our woman and raise our children like we want to raise our children. Essentially, the movement has always been about that liberating sense between the natural order of life, man, woman, and child. We always sought to manifest that universal principle, that universal truth. So women at times have fought harder for that than men had the courage to at times. And, you know, I truly believe and have a deep, strong, fundamental love for women and all the women who have participated in our liberation and our movement. So, you know, just to name drop some sisters, you know, Queen Afua or Mecca Wise, the sister that passed away, who Dr. Supreme Understanding was married to. These women are phenomenal, and all the sisters who are in that knowledge of self, and all the sisters who Nation of Islam, Betty Shabazz, and you know, these sisters have done tremendous works in the liberation, the movement, and the lover and nurturing of brothers like us. Because when we come home and hang our heads on the hook, they right there. And somebody, please send Brother E a hot meal. He's hungry. Man, we get on this channel. Get up. Straight up. Man, I'm talking, I'm on it, E. I'm talking, that's something nice for you. God,
appreciate that.
For real. So, absolutely, man. Women, we love y'all. We know that y'all a major proponent to our freedom, to our love, to our nurturing, and it's phenomenal. Definitely.
True indeed. Brother Wall, you gonna take us out with something?
I would basically say, because just dealing with the things that's going on in San Diego right now in terms of the San Diego Black Panther Party, I look at women as being the equal part of what it takes to make the movement happen. I think it's foolish for anybody to create a scenario or continue the miseducation and misconception of feeling like one is above the other. Like the men is what make the Panther Party. And that goes into the misinformation as well, in terms of when you see an image of the Panther, then you think of a man with a gun, and that is what a Panther is to you. That is the farthest thing from the truth. It's not about the gun, it's about the relationship in the building of the man and the woman together to create that movement and move forward in that. And just with that, I like to give credit to just a few. There's many women in the organization that right now, but I like to give credit to a few of them that really help sustain and move us forward. First and foremost, here in San Diego, Sister Renee, who's not currently operating in uniform as an active member, but she was very instrumental in moving the party forward and keeping it on its toes and foundated. Sister Taz, I like to give her credit for continually staying there to be there and to break the molds of what people consider to be a uplifting and powerful woman in the movement. Latrice, who used to be our Minister of Defense at one point in time, going back to the thing about how men feared stepping up to certain roles and then women had to do it. I still find to this day right now that a lot of men, because of their ego and lack of being, I would say, a real man or stepping up to that position of man, but feeling like they hadn't made it to this certain financial status before they step out and do work in the community. Now we find our women filling those positions. So this misnomer that a man has to get to this certain status, because again, you're looking at things through the standards of someone else, as opposed to recognizing the position of repair that we in within our communities that we need to be in, is the reason why, unfortunately, a lot of men are not stepping to the plate, because they feel like they got to be at a certain economic position and then they want to help the community. Whereas the sisters recognize, look, we have to do what we have to do now, or things are going to get worse. Period. A couple of more. Comrade Storm, I got to give her credit for doing the work and stepping in. So we got always got to give credit to the women in keeping the thing balanced and moving forward in that position. They've always played a strong role, and they must continue to play a strong role. To do anything other than is going back to the damage of COINTELPRO, which basically pins the woman against the man and vice versa, and creates a situation to where the Panther movement or movements in general could not sustain themselves. So we can't allow the same things that we see to be what's wrong with society right now to impede our grassroots movements in the community in terms of empowerment. So in order for us to stand upright and represent what is necessary and represent what is just in the community, we have to consider ourselves as equal and recognize the place that each role has and each person has within the movement, whatever that may be.
Right on.
Indeed.
Just real quick, and I have no information to back this up, but I'm just sitting here thinking, and it's curious to me that those, you mentioned Hugh and them back in the day, which y'all call the Black Panther Party. I call it Hugh and them. I call them leeches. That the programs that serve the community, what really made them a threat to this government, this way of life, were programs, if you look at Feed the Children, the ambulance, the free shoes, the food, all of these things come from a very nurturing, very feminine place. So I kind of have to wonder if a lot of these programs were spearheaded or begun, or at least the idea of we need to do this came from women. You know, and again, I don't have any information to back that up, but I'm just, you know, if anybody has it, I would love to see it or hear it. But just that idea of that feminine influence, you know, we got the guns and we hard, and again, that forward face, which is what we're supposed to do. But at the same time, the programs that were really galvanizing and beginning to gel and give us a real unified power base in the community were all, or for the most part, were very, very feminine in their expression. You know, again, taking care of, basically putting a big black breast out there and letting the community suckle from it so that it could grow stronger. And, you know, it lasts, and I'm gonna end with this, but this, one of the values, and probably the most, a very dangerous value, is this idea of competition. We moved from a level where Black men and women were cooperating or coordinating within our relationships to a point where we're competing within our relationships. I got to get what's best for me. And so now we go into a relationship with a competitive mind, attempting to get over, attempting to get what you know, to satisfy my narcissism or my ego or what it is I need, and building on that, because the society rewards and cultivates that competitive spirit, that competitive standard and value, that idea that is so contrary to what it is that actually has to exist, which is that more cooperative, not that there's never going to be competition, but that overwhelming cooperation and coordination between Black men and Black women, and the recognition, as we've pretty much all said, comes from the realization that I'm only going to rise as you rise. So it makes sense for me to not compete you and try to rise over you, because that's another aspect of toxic femininity, is that in order for this idea that in order for women to come up and things get better for women, men have to be pressed down. That's what they do. It's almost always at the behest of, you know, dogging out a man is how you bring up women. That's not us. Building up a woman is how you build up a woman. Building up a woman is how you build up a man, and vice versa. Women need to build up men, because it's going to come back and it's going to build them up. It's that back and forth relationship that we've acknowledged for thousands and thousands of years, that built the pyramids, that built civilization, that built all of those things that we've now abandoned in lieu of some pretty ass shoes and a coochie that won't stop. So
favorite.
And with that, we're going to close today's I even hate to say broadcast, because oh boy, he made it famous. The dude, when he said the broadcast that you made the mix with E, but I'm gonna close today's broadcast with that one. This will be dropped on 2 channels, the Rich Intelligent Media channel and the Panther 48 channel. If you subscribe to the Panther 48 channel and you like building on manhood and manhood development concepts, go subscribe to the Rich Intelligent Media channel. And if you subscribe to the Rich Intelligent Media channel and you love this more political education type of conversation that's geared toward the development of the Black community, go and subscribe to the Panther 48 channel. I hope you got something beneficial from the conversation today. Some of it's going to be some hard medicine, but you got to swallow it, because it's going to help us heal. I thank the brothers for participating tonight. I hope y'all got something from this. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. All power to the people.
Peace, God. Peace, brother.
Cheese grits.
Cheese grits. Yeah.
And somebody make Brother E a meal. Power, peace and power.
One. All right, brother.